Welcome everybody to this patch note rundown or patch note discussion of patch 6.04. I think it's only a small patch with some balance changes and we should be through this really quick. At the very first, I want to remind you that right now there's the Legion in-house league, which is a league out of the best teams in Legion. The 12 best teams are competing there over 5 weeks and then there will be a finals weekend. There's a lot of streams about that and almost all of those games will be casted by high elo players. So if you're interested in checking them out, go to the Discord and there's a whole category for the Legion in-house league and you will get notifications if a game will be casted. On top of that, on Halloween, there will be the Steenie's Halloween Cup with a prize pool of $300, I'm sorry. And there's this special coin the winner will get shipped to his home. But now let's come to the patch notes and to the game improvements, balancing stuff and all that. We're having a lot of Legion spell changes, and this happened after discussion on how Legion spells, how strong they are, and how they behave in the game. All of Assault is now having a bigger reduction of your income if you pick it. And I think this is a good way. All of Assault is giving you 100 Mythium flat just by picking the spell. And you kind of get a disadvantage if you're able to get that much Mythium at a time. Because it's actually a huge threat if you're already saved like 300 Mythium yourself. A 400 cent on wave 11, which is quite early, is huge. And I think the punishment for taking all out of Assault now is a good thing. Next on, we're having giant snails. They're having a little bit of reduced stats, damage and HP wise. I like this change as well very much, since giant snails feel really strong. They are kind of one of my must pick spells, because they're not only strong on a wave shortly after 10, like 11, 12, 13, but they have an impact basically all over the game, because you will always have the opportunity to send big and cheap tanks. So I think they've been definitely on the stronger spell side, and this is a good change. As well, Guardian Angel on some specific units like Kingpins, Doppelgangers, Phoenix, Lioness was just huge. So I highly prefer the change from it to be a little bit less viable on those carry units. Something I don't really understand is press the attack is getting nerfed. I've seen the stats that it's, stats wise at least, very strong in the game, so I can understand that this is getting nerfed out of this reason. But still, 70 Mythium doesn't feel that good anymore. But in comparison, if you're nerfing all out of Assault, you should nerf press the attack as well, because the balance between them is then not given anymore. So on one hand side, I can understand this change. But on the other hand side, I felt like press the attack was a balanced spell compared to 100 gold of allowance. So I think there was no change needed. But a change I really like is the new Protector, which is giving you 50 more bonus health, and especially units with reduction like Antler, Lioness, Yosora. All those are gonna profit from this buff. Pulverizer, probably still the worst spell in the game, is now getting some huge improvements. Look at this, you're now having a 32%, which we can say 1/3% chance to stun. And especially units at 32% on melee, by the way. And if there's a unit that is attacking really fast and is melee, I think the best unit you could have melee is Doppelganger. For range it's 16%, but there's some units that having really fast attack speed like Harpies or Atoms. So it might be worth a try soon. I'm not sure if it's already enough, but it is really close to being good, I think. Next on, and I think that is the change I like the most, is Sacrifice. Now you don't get the 90 gold after you sold a unit, but you will get it right away after you pick the spell, which will make it possible for Sacrifice to shift longer into the game So you don't have to replace a unit right on 11 to get the 90 gold, but you can just take the 90 gold, build something that is good 11, 12, and then for example sell your Haven to build something really strong on 13, 14. So this is a really, really drastic change, and I think it's awesome for some mind games. It might be awesome for high elo gameplay. And there's a lot of tactics that are now opening up with this change. I really love it, and it's going to be beautiful to see in games. Next on we have Sorcerer, still probably one of the best spells in the game. I think it was the best overall. The thing with Sorcerer is always that as soon as you have it in your selection, you kind of force yourself to take it because it's that strong, which is also leading to really weird win ratios, because Sorcerer should be one of the best spells, especially win ratio wise as well. I think with all those nerfs coming, I'm not sure anymore whether it was nerfed 4 or 5 times after each other, it should now be in a position where it is kind of balanced on the majority of units, but still really strong on units like Flower, Sorcerer, Pyro, or Elite Archer. So I think with those units it might be really strong still, and on the others it's kind of balanced compared to other spells. It's not that hard of a play around anymore. I think Violet with Tempest is pretty strong with Sorcerer as well. Next on, we're having some reductions on Vampire again after it got buffed last week or last patch. I can understand the nerfs here, it was probably a little bit too strong. Villain is getting some improvements as well. I think that's fine. Villain was not a good spell. At least I didn't feel like it. So I can understand that you kind of need to buff it. But one like special secret you had with Villain is that PB and Veteran, if they were boosted, they were not marked as a ranged unit, but they were still melee units. So you were able to put Pulverizer or Villain on a PV Veteran and get the melee gens and not the ranged gens. This is now changed after those percentage improvements are really huge, and it would definitely affect PB being one of the best units for those two spells. So I can understand this is removed. Sadly, I was never in a position to take it because I never felt like Villain is that strong. But especially Jules loved to cheese around with that, and it worked out quite often for him. Next on, we're having a synergy. I can feel that this is need a nerf, which is the Atom Steed synergy. This is now nerfed by 17%. I'm still pretty sure Atom Steed will be one of the more promising early game starts. You just have to keep in mind that Atom is not a full game unit, but you want to have it like till 7, and from then on you kind of want to have another source that is using the mana of steeds, for example Violets, Gates, Gate Guards, some of those, to be more efficient in the later game. A change that surprised me for real is Nikomata being on close to 52.5% win rate, because personally I feel like Nikomata is very weak compared to the old days of Nikomata, especially with Brutes on 7 being such a high threat at the moment. But it looks like it has a huge win rate, and if that's the case, I'm fine with a nerf right here. This nerf is not too drastic, so I think if the win rate is already that high, it will still be over 50%, and it will still be a strong unit to play for waves 7, 3, 8. Growl, my heart is bleeding a little bit here, because Growl has already been nerfed 2 damage 2 patches ago. Now it's getting nerfed again just because the delicacy spell is that strong, and Growl is just awesome for this spell. You can just sell Growl or any upgrade for 90% of the price anytime, and it's very good to shift some money and to play some mind games. And I'm really a little bit sad that the win rate is actually balanced about 50.4%, so it's actually fine. and it's only getting nerfed because of the high pick rate, because of the delicacy spell. So I'm a little bit sad about this, because growl was actually totally fine in my eyes. It was not too strong, not too weak in the early game. What was too strong was the delicacy spell, but in order to not have to nerf this spell, they did choose to nerf the damage. To be honest, I would have just let the growl be growl, and I would have just not done this here at all. Another change to make Pegasus and Steed be better with themselves is now reducing their attack speed by a little and increasing the amount of damage speed they get if they buff themselves. I'm still sure you should not pick them without any other buffs, even if their DPS as a soul unit might now reach levels of other damage dealers, but their HP stats are still awful, so don't play Sacred Steeds with no other synergy. Next on, we're having Zeus. Zeus got nerfed pretty hard over a few patches. In the early days of Season 6, is now getting some love again after it's decreased hard. I think Zeus was from S tier start to A tier start to like no tier start, and it might get back to a little bit of a promising opener again. Ranger, they feel weak, they are weak, as we see it in the win rate, and this little buff won't help them too much. I think there's at least this buff once again needed to make them good. The problem is just that you usually are way happier having a Sea Serpent in your role to deal the pierce damage, because it can also prevent the ranged mercenaries. So if you're having Ranger in your role, I would still prefer to take Sea Serpents, and I would tell you to do so as well. Desert Pilgrim, the heal is getting nerfed a bit. Keep in mind that this heal is hitting up to 3 targets, so it's not nerfed by 5, but it's nerfed by 15, which can be deciding in some early game waves like 3 and 4. But overall, I think it's still a very good comp with Wild Shroom, with Vargs, with Violets, Infiltrators, all those units. It's just awesome to play them in the early game. You kind of have to care a little bit on 7-8, but besides that, there's a lot of potential in the early game. I still hate the upgrade. Lost Chieftain will be weak until you can select the target of your choice to be casted on, and then it will be way too strong with the current stats. So let's hope this is coming soon, this upgrade. And until then, play the Desert Pilgrim, play the Lost Chieftain if you're placing your tank in front anyway. But if you're like having a tank in front, you don't really want to have the buff, don't go for the Chieftain, go for more Pilgrims then. Next, we're having Fertilizer getting some more health and some more damage. I think this is a good choice. Berserker and Fertilizer still a very underrated unit. In Discord, we had a short discussion about Berserker getting buffed as well, which was my idea. A lot of people disagree with that. Let's see how the Fertilizer improvements will change the pick rate and the win rate of this unit. I really like that there's some more love, because it's just outclassed by Kingpins and Doppelgangers for a long time already. Next on, we're having the tier 6 units. Great Boa, nothing to say there. They're just super weak right now because they got nerfed for so long after they have been a powerhouse in a whole season. Now getting more HP, they're getting more damage. And if you want to buff them correctly, I would say you don't buff the damage here, but you buff the splash damage, because you don't go for boas for flat damage, but for the splash. So if you want to bring them really back, it has to be really small steps, because the chance you overshoot with a buff of percentage or splash damage is very small. But I think if you just increase it like a little bit, 0.5%, it might be already in a spot where you really want to play it. Next on, we're having Soul Gates. They are still in a very weak spot, and Jules, bless him, he heard my concerns. Now Hellions and Nightcrawlers getting some more health. this is exactly how you should help the gate out, and I'm really looking forward to try them out. I think they might be in a balanced state again. Maybe there's a little bit more needed, but if you look at this, 200 health for the elite Hellions is quite a lot, and 60 for the small ones. It might already be balanced, maybe a little bit is more needed, but I'm really looking forward to try out this. And if you liked gates, maybe try it out yourself. Just keep in mind that you will still need a synergy in the best case, like Steeds, Ocean Templar, White Mane, or Disciple. And then they might be really fun to play. We're having Millennium. Still, Millennium is not about having more health. It's not about having more damage. Like, look at this. It's getting 100 more health. It's getting 25 more damage, and it's getting 20 more splash. And I can still tell you that Millennium and Doomsday Machine is not performing well just because their range is way too high. You want to have this unit tank for your LODs. You want to have this unit tank for your elite archers, and you want to have this unit tank for your pyro. And as soon as this is happening again, you will play Millennium once again. And last but not least, to wave changes, some more attack speed for wave 11 and some less health for wave 14. I like the 14 because it's making 15 more of a threat after 14 being weaker now and 15 being more of a threat on top. 15 ascend on 15, which is now compared to 14 a little bit stronger, is even more risky because of the double worker chance afterwards. So it's a little bit of a strategic play involved now. I'm a little bit worried about 11. 11 already felt really strong in some games where you have press the attack all out of assault, for example, and very weak in others where there were a lot of defensive spells like Loan, Allowance, Hero, and so on. So I'm looking forward to test this out. I'm not sure about 11 because it was actually balanced. It was depending on the spell selection, but I like the change on 14. I hope you enjoyed the video. Go check out my streams and especially the Legion in-house league. I cast some games there, I play there, and there's a lot of other casters going for that. Obviously the patch notes is linked in the description as well, and have fun trying out this patch.